In this session, we will be talking about e-commerce business owners willing to expand globally. So there are so many possibilities in different parts of the world, in Europe, in North America. Some sellers are selling only in Europe, and they could be earning much more money if they expand their business to North America and vice versa. And our guest today is Rael Lowenthal from Z. Z is a company which helps e-commerce business owners to expand globally. And this is a Q&A session. And during this session, if you're watching live, comment in the chat on the site, and Rael, our guest, will answer your questions. So let's welcome Rael. Hello, hi.
Augustus, thank you. Always great to be with you and the team, and excited to be answering some of your important questions and those of the listeners.
Yeah, perfect. So before we start with questions, could you give us a little bit an overview? What is Z? What do you do, and how do you help Amazon sellers?
Great. Thing I love talking about most. So Z, we're a trade compliance and import compliance specialist for Amazon sellers and other e-commerce merchants. And what that means is we do all of the necessary compliance and import work to help sellers get their businesses, products compliant and legal for trade in the country that they want to start selling in, and then to also help them get their inventory past customs, making sure that they can get any refundable taxes like import VAT back, which is very important, and then also facilitating end-to-end logistics. So really, we're a one-stop shop solution to take any e-commerce or Amazon business into a new market.
And what services do you provide? You provide everything. And if you don't have specialists in-house, you have partners, right?
That's correct. So our services are split really into two parts. We have a global trade compliance service, which will get the entity registered for any VAT, JCT, or GST, just depending on where they're going. We will do the ongoing filings that are necessary, monthly, quarterly, just depending on the country and the business. We will then get the seller's product, both legal for sale and legal for import in the destination country, so product compliance. And then once that process is complete, we then do the import compliance, which means preparing all of the customs documentation on behalf of the seller, making sure the goods get through customs quickly, efficiently, and in a tax efficient manner. So making sure that the HS codes have been classified correctly and making sure import VAT is reclaimable. And then lastly, actually picking the goods up from the export country, arranging for the total freight all the way till delivery to the Amazon center or the 3PL.
Perfect. So let's start with more global question. What countries would be your recommendation to explore for someone who wants to expand their business? Probably we can take a North American seller and European seller.
Great. So, we get asked this question a lot, and I think overall, you've got to look at the size of each marketplace as the obvious metric when you're deciding to go internationally. So if you're a North American seller, the next biggest marketplaces outside of North America are Germany, which is the second largest market in the world, and then the UK, which is the third. Often North American sellers opt for pan-EU, which means that they will be able to sell across Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Poland, and Czech Republic. But there's just a slight added complexity there because VAT or VAT registrations are required in all 6 countries before that can take place. But really, what it does is it gives the seller the ability to import and deliver their stock or inventory into one fulfillment center in one country, and then Amazon will sell it and move it across all 6, depending on where the sales are coming from. But like I say, Germany being the second largest marketplace in the world, generally that's the first step into Europe, and then the UK now being outside of Europe being number 3. There are some other interesting marketplaces like the UAE and Japan, which are sort of newer and more up and coming, and the volumes are really starting to show there. Australia as well. And then again, for a North American seller, they can take part in North American remote fulfillment, where Amazon will fulfill orders into Canada and Mexico from a US warehouse. Now, that gives them a nice taste of international sales, but it doesn't give them the ability to reach their full Canadian and Mexican sales potential for really one key reason. The whole reason why FBA was developed was so that Amazon could guarantee next day delivery to their prime customers, which are by far the biggest spenders on the platform. When Amazon fulfills an order out of a US warehouse to Canada or Mexico, the prime customer waits 7 to 12 days for that delivery. And if you're not a prime customer, you will also pay for international delivery fees and wait longer than that. So if you think about it, if you're a Canadian or Mexican customer and you're looking at a homogenous product that's sold by those who take part in North American remote fulfillment and those who are taking part in FBA, naturally you would choose FBA because you can get next day delivery. So customer experience is very important when choosing an international destination to sell in. So it may not be the biggest marketplace in the world, but because Canada is so close by, it's English speaking, generally that's also a very obvious choice for North American sellers. Now, if we move to Europe, European sellers, so anyone based in the entire European Union, they've got a really big advantage because, again, they can get their VAT registrations, they understand all of that, and they can sell across 6 countries basically from tomorrow. From there, the next best in terms of the distance and the least amount of complexity to get there would be the UK, because it's right on their doorstep, and now that's not a country in the European Union anymore, so a formal import must take place, selling from Europe into the UK. And then obviously, the US being by far the biggest, it's almost 10x the size of Germany, and Germany's second. So it really is, it's by far the largest retail consumer market in the world. But I suppose one thing that needs to be considered for North America is just saturation and competition. If you've mastered Pan-EU, there's a good chance you can do well in the US as well. But you must just take into account, the amount of competition and saturation in the market. And then again, for a European seller, it is relevant to start looking at newer marketplaces like Japan, Australia, the UAE. Japan is a little bit more complex. There are certain products that are illegal to import as a foreign importer. Some examples would be toys for children under the age of 6, any cosmetics, and any food or beverages, and then anything that comes into contact with food or beverages. So if you're looking to expand to Japan, you've just got to be in the right product category to do so.
Actually, I wanted to ask about Japan, and you just answered my question about Japan. I remember a few years ago, a lot of people were talking about Japan, but not so much anymore. We have one of your customers says, I just started working with Z to expand my Amazon brand, while Leanne and Amber have been a huge help. Time, I don't know if it's real name, but let us know in the comments from where you are expanding so that we understand what help you're getting. And let's talk about, I had an interesting question here. Let's talk about Brexit. So you mentioned Europe. And what exactly changed with sending goods between UK and other countries?
Okay, so prior to Brexit, so let's say you weren't based in the UK or the EU. So this would be more relevant for North American sellers. Pre-Brexit, North American sellers could import their products, if they were partaking in pan-European sales, at the time UK being included in the EU, they would be able to deliver all of their inventory to the UK, and then Amazon would transfer it into the European countries where the majority of their sales were taking place. After Brexit, that was no longer possible because now there is a customs border between the UK and the EU. So North American sellers had to now start importing into the UK and then choosing a European country to import into, and naturally that would be Germany because it's the largest. But again, if you were doing pan-EU, you could choose an alternative like France or Italy or Spain, and then Amazon would do the transfer for you. For EU and UK-based sellers, similar principle. If you're a UK-based seller and you were selling in Europe pre-Brexit, you basically didn't have to deliver anywhere other than your UK warehouse, which was obviously very convenient for UK-based sellers. Post-Brexit, UK sellers had to go through a formal import into Europe, and really the biggest complexity for UK sellers was the trucking companies in the UK that were transporting goods between the UK and the EU pre-Brexit. They weren't set up for customs clearances post-Brexit. So there was massive backlogs with trucking companies that weren't set up. They didn't have customs brokers. There was a lot of complexity involved. They were getting stuck at the borders. So I think, now going on almost 2 years down the line, year and a half down the line, it's gotten better. The trucking companies have definitely improved their ability to do clearances into the Europe from the UK, because naturally UK sellers don't want to use air freight to freight their goods, when it can be driven on a truck. It's just more economical that way. And then for EU-based sellers, similar principle. They used to be able to send their stock to the UK without a formal import taking place. Now the border, a formal import has to take place, and they needed both UK, EU, and North American sellers now all required local representation for customs purposes in the EU, or an import of record or indirect representation. The terms are interchangeable.
All right. Can you give us an overview of how much is faster to ship from China to US, the air shipment in comparison to sea shipment?
So a sea shipment can be anywhere between 35 and 55 days. So it really is significantly longer than an air shipment. An air shipment is a maximum of 7 days, door to door. Sometimes it can be less, it can be 3 or 4 days. Just depends on when the pickup can take place and how long the customs clearance takes place. And that difference is reflected in the pricing between the two options. Sea freight is significantly cheaper than air freight, but it also depends, on what type of goods are you sending. Different freight methods are more applicable for the type of freight. We can get into maybe more detail about that later, but really that's really the difference. It's going to, you're going to add on 3 to 4 to 6 weeks, just depending on how quick the sea freight is versus air freight.
Mm-hmm. And could you explain the shipping booking process? So if you book now with one rate, it's a sea shipment, and your products are ready, but because of the backlog of different events, sailing weeks, and the containers are sitting there for a few weeks or months, how does it affect the shipping booking on the initial one?
So I think that's going to be very dependent on the terms and conditions between you and the forwarder. So I think people post-COVID have really learned that T's and C's are actually very, very important. So just to give you some context there, so take it one step back from the actual sellers. Freight forwarders, in the freight forwarding world, freight forwarders contract legally with the shipping lines. So for example, you'll have a freight forwarder that contracts with Maersk, which is the actual vessel company, right? And they get fixed term contracts for rates. And so they'll sign for, let's say, 12 months or 24 months, okay, the freight forwarder and Maersk. When the whole backlog with COVID happened, there was actually a lot of, legal difficulties there, because the freight forwarders could now charge 4, 5 to 6 times the container rate to the market, but their rates with the shipping lines were fixed. So all that happened is the freight forwarding margins increased significantly, and some of those relationships got severely deteriorated, and it actually landed up some of the shipping lines going directly to the market for containers. But again, when we break it down to the seller, when you're contracting with your forwarder, just make sure you know what the terms and conditions of your booking are. Generally speaking, when you get a rate, it's valid for 2 weeks after you get the quote. So under those conditions, if there's a delay because of a backlog, the rate will change. But if you've stipulated in your contractual agreement that you want your rate to stick, you can try and negotiate that with your forwarder.
All right. A bit related question to what issues sellers might have if they don't have insurance for their shipments.
So, the type of insurance that is applicable in these cases is called marine cargo insurance. And there's two types of marine cargo insurance. So you can have insurance that protects you against damage or loss of your product from pickup until delivery. And then the one thing I think that's often overlooked, and this is the second type of marine cargo insurance, is one that includes insurance for duties and taxes. Because what can happen is that your goods get lost or stolen post customs clearance, which means you would have had to pay the customs duties and VAT. Now your goods get stolen or lost, they can't be sold. You're on the hook for the 19 or 21% VAT and whatever non-refundable duties, but you're actually not entitled to get that back, which can incur significant losses. So I think when you're looking for marine cargo insurance, very important that you get marine cargo insurance that includes insurance for post-customs clearance. And we actually offer that as a service to our clients.
Cool. And talking about your clients, Tommy was writing earlier a comment that he is happy to work with you, and he says he is expanding his automotive custom paint supply brand to Germany and Japan.
Excellent.
And Shahid has a question. We are US-based brand selling in UK and Canada. Our German VAT registration is in process, and Dutch EORI, I don't know how to pronounce, is issued this week. Can we start selling in Germany or other European marketplaces with UK FBA inventory?
Okay, that's a great question, Shahid. I hope I've pronounced your name correctly. All right, so you are not legally allowed to store goods in the EU, so in any EU country, without your VAT registration being in place, without you having been issued your German VAT number. So you won't be able to send stock there for sale there. What you can do is potentially turn on your EFN, which is the European Fulfillment Network, which allows you to sell your UK-based inventory in the EU. You will need what's known as an IOSS registration in order to do that, because you are now distance selling from the UK into Europe. So the simple answer is no, you won't be able to start selling your stock either from the UK or in Europe because you don't have your VAT registration in place yet. When your VAT registration has come through, I think it would be a good idea to get in touch with us, and we can start helping you with the imports into Germany.
Do you think Amazon would allow him to sell without providing VAT?
No, they won't allow it.
Yeah, you would not be able even to set up the process. Oh, Gary wants to know, I understand Brexit and customs issues. If I can sell from US to many global countries and Amazon handles the shipment, can I use European Amazon distribution centers and sell into UK using Amazon model?
As far as I understand it, there's no selling from EU to UK the way that it's set up to sell from the UK to the EU. What I do know is that Amazon has a service called Amazon Global Selling. And what that means is that your ASIN can be listed in basically any country you want. And Amazon drop ships that order from your US warehouse to any country in the world. The complexity that's going to come in with the new VAT laws for the UK. So let's say, I'm just going to paint it out as an example for you. So if you have stock in your US warehouse and you'd like Amazon Global Shipping to fulfill orders into the UK and into the EU from there, if those orders are above 135 pounds or 150 euros each, you have to be registered for VAT in either country. If they are below that, then you don't need to be registered for VAT in either of those countries. So it'll depend on the order size. So Gary, the best option if you want to, and okay, sorry, one step back again. Again, we need to have the discussion around customer experience. So when you turn on Amazon Global Shipping, the customer is going to wait 2 to 3 weeks for their order, and they're going to have to pay customs duties when those goods arrive. Now, that's a horrible customer experience, especially for an Amazon customer that's used to getting their order within a day, and it's pretty seamless. So the best option for you as the seller to really maximize your sales potential is to register for VAT in all the countries, European countries that you want to sell in, and get stock delivered directly to an FBA facility. That will make sure that you get access to all of Amazon's Prime customers, which are the biggest spenders on the platform. It will give them the best customer experience that Amazon have mastered, and ultimately give you the best sales that you could get for your brand.
Right. Actually, Gary, there are also sometimes services which helps if you want just to test your product in European market. We have some videos also with Space Goats. They are a company which can help to sell your product through their account, and then you can just test. Maybe European market doesn't, respond to your product well. So Shahid wants to know, can we start selling in European marketplaces with UK FBA inventory and cross-border fee without having VATs? So probably without having VAT in European countries.
No. Well, so again, the same applies. If the orders are below 135 pounds or 150 euros, then yes, in theory you could. If you reach a certain sales threshold, I'm not exactly sure what it is, you will have to register. So really, your best option is to wait for your VAT registration to come through. That will give you the most compliant sales in Europe.
And I think actually, when you are selling, you don't know how big will be the order, because maybe the product is just 10 pounds, but I might order 20 units, so it will be 200 pounds, and then you probably are in trouble.
And again, then the customer lands up losing, right? And then you may get a bad review on your account. So it's best for you to wait for your VAT registration to come through and then activate.
And Pirata asks, how difficult is it to sell seats in US from Europe?
I'm not sure exactly what seeds these are. If it's seeds that a person's going to eat, then it's quite difficult. The FDA regulation is quite complex with importing, for foreign importers to import food-related products into the US. If it's not for actual consumption purposes for humans or for pets, then it will be less complex, but there will be some compliance around it. And I just have to make a comment here. Amazon sell 45 million, and it's probably more now than from the last time I checked, but at least 45 million different product types across all of their international marketplaces. And so a lot of people ask me, about specific related products in specific countries. I wish I knew the answers to every single one of them and the detailed answers, but the whole reason we've built our product compliance team is for that reason specifically, is because there's so many different types of products, and we've got experts that deal with specific product categories in specific countries, and they will help you get whatever compliance is necessary to actually start selling those products in those countries.
And we got clarification. He meant the seeds where you grow plants.
So that will be less complex than for consumption. But again, the US is quite strict when it comes to anything that could potentially have diseases. So like I know with leather products or any kind of like compost or those types of products, there is stringent requirements because it can spread diseases.
And the link to, those who are watching and need help with international expansion, don't forget that you can find the link below to the Z's website, and you can contact their team and they will help with your specific case. Shahid was asking earlier the question about selling in Europe with the UK setup. And he says, okay, cool, got the answer. We'll try to contact Z. Gary is also appreciating the answer. He was asking about Brexit and European distribution centers. So are you saying I can ship into UK warehouse direct to Amazon facility as long as I have VAT in the UK? I would ship from Netherlands as importer of record into the UK.
Okay, great. Gary, I'm going to answer your question right now. I just want to say for the people that are listening today, I'm more than happy for you to reach out directly to me to my personal email address. That's rail@zee.co. raell@zee.co, and I can personally help you with whatever your request is.
Is it correct, this email?
So there's one more L at the end of my name, so it's raell@zee.co.
Wait, one more L. Double L.
Double L, exactly, at
Yes,
zee.co.
okay. We'll show
Great.
again. So,
Yeah.
all right. The question.
Yeah. So can you put up Gary's question again? Okay. So the answer is yes. You can ship to a UK warehouse, direct an Amazon facility, as long as you have a VAT registration in the UK. So the answer here is that customs, as a foreign importer, customs will likely ask you for a local business that's based in that country to take on the customs responsibilities on your behalf. In saying that, customs can be, inconsistent. So you may have, we've had situations where clients say to us, hey, we don't need your import of record services for the UK because my shipments are getting through. They might. If you want consistency in your supply chain and the definite ability to reclaim your import VAT back, then it's imperative that you have an import of record, prepare your customs documentation, and make sure that those goods clear customs, and make sure that the CCD, the customs clearance documents, look right or the appropriate way for the import VAT reclaim. You're saying here at the end, I would ship from the Netherlands as importer of record into the UK. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that. I think you're probably storing your product in the Netherlands. And again, the importer of record issue into the UK, it's best to have a local business take on that responsibility on your behalf. It makes sure that you have stability and make sure that your goods actually clear. We've had situations where we've had to step in after clients told us that they didn't need us because their shipments are now stuck at customs. That's a 2-3 week wait, and you getting penalized by Amazon. That's not worth your while. So, come to us, let us help you, and make sure that you have consistency with those imports. Okay. So the question is, what happens if I have German VAT but not AORI number, and I already sent products to the warehouse? Look, it's unlikely that your shipment would have been allowed through customs without an EORI number in the first place. So I've never seen the case where a shipment gets through German customs without an EORI number. So it wouldn't even make it to the Amazon warehouse in that case. If for whatever reason, like I say, customs can be inconsistent. If for whatever reason your shipment did clear and went through to the Amazon warehouse, you will not be able to reclaim your import VAT despite having a German VAT number. Your EORI number has to be on that customs clearance document in order for you to get the VAT back. And in Germany, this is specifically important because German customs value the shipments at their retail price. So you're basically paying 19% on your retail price, which you're not going to be able to get back. And in all likelihood, that kills your margins. Cool. Thank you. What a seller should ask from logistics company to make sure that they will be responsible for making everything done correctly regarding importing products into US? So what is the checklist? Okay, so I think this comes down to, again, what type of products you sell. In our experience, and also, again, what type of freight you're using. So if you've got, a couple of boxes that you're going to air freight to the US, there's not much you need to really make sure of. The only thing is that you make sure is that your FBA labels are securely attached to the boxes. And what's also important is for whoever's preparing the boxes, is to take a picture of them with the FBA labels and the commercial invoice securely attached to the cargo. Because if it gets lost or damaged at any point, you can go to your logistics provider and say, hey, when I packed these boxes and when I labeled them, they were perfectly fine. Something went wrong on your end and you need to replace them. So I would say in either situation, whether it's an air or a sea shipment, make sure to take pictures of your cargo before it leaves so that you know in what condition it was picked up in. When it comes to doing sea freight, and you're now going to be sending, let's say, 50 or 100 boxes at a time, our suggestion is to always palletize your boxes, because loose boxes in a container it's a recipe for getting damaged or lost. So better to palletize and shrink wrap it. that makes sure that the products or the inventory doesn't get damaged or lost during the process.
Do Amazon FBA shipping labels have expiration dates?
Yes, they do. In my experience so far, they're 90 days from a date, but I think that will change depending on the type of product that you have. Because obviously, if you've got a perishable product that will go off before 90 days, then Amazon aren't going to give you a 90-day FBA label. So, like I say, in my experience with some of the clients I've dealt with, they've told me it's been 90 days, but I think you need to check that just depending on the type of inventory that you're selling.
Mm-hmm. And let's take a scenario where products are sold. Oh, not all the question is written here, but products are sold are stored in Poland, and there is a VAT registration in Poland. And customer from Germany buys a product and returns. So of course they are returning to German warehouse of Amazon. Or do the seller from Poland need a German VAT?
No, you don't. It's an interesting case. The best suggestion I would have is to get that stock returned to your Polish warehouse. The fact that it got returned to a German warehouse is probably in error of the logistics company that was fulfilling the order in the first place. You are allowed to, in this situation, you're not taking part in pan-EU sales, so it would be considered a distance sale. In which case the goods should have been returned to your Polish warehouse.
Mm-hmm. All right. If they're storing in Poland, they are not using warehouse of Amazon likely. And
exactly. So, your returns should be marked for your Polish warehouse, not for a warehouse in Germany.
Okay. So as a European-based company selling products in US, what do I need to do in order to stay compliant with US sales taxes?
Okay, so US sales taxes is actually quite complex. I'm going to give a high level just overview because it's not really important to get too much into the detail, especially when it comes to Amazon. So in the US, there are 4 states where Amazon doesn't collect and remit the sales tax on behalf of the seller to the government. I get the question a lot, how do I make sure that my boxes don't get sent to those warehouses? I can't answer that question. That's completely based on Amazon's algorithm. So I have no idea how you get around that. But for the most part, you don't actually need to really worry about sales tax because most of the states are collecting it and remitting it on your behalf to the government. I think where your sales start to reach significant numbers across the US, then there might be more complexities involved in sales tax. And I would advise you speaking to a tax practitioner that's proficient in US sales tax.
Do you know if you need to add your business or a name and address on the packaging?
No, you don't. There'll be certain products where, like, if you're selling in Europe and an EU-based address needs to be on the product label, that's going to be a product-specific requirement. But overall, the answer there would be no.
Mm-hmm. So let's say it's a small business, and would it be difficult for them to do VAT returns themselves until they grow the business?
I would strongly advise against it. You don't want to open yourself up for tax liability, tax audits. You might be small at the beginning, but your intention is always to get big. And there's certain things that you shouldn't be cutting costs around, and taxes is one of them. If you want a long-term sustainable business, you don't want to be on the hook with any tax office for non-compliance, because you'll get penalties, you'll get interest, and you won't even know that you aren't doing it right because you don't know what you don't know. So if you're doing a business plan, my suggestion, have sufficient capital to pay for someone else, an expert, to do your VAT returns, because they will be liable for it, not you.
Mm-hmm. Regarding VAT, is there a difference whether to start selling on European markets with Pan-EU or EFN program?
Yeah, great question. So this is very similar to the difference between North American remote fulfillment and FBA. So if you're going to sell using the EFN program, it means that you'll be delivering your inventory to a UK-based warehouse, and Amazon will be fulfilling orders from there into the EU. Although they have made the customs processes slightly easier between the EU and the UK, the customer will still not be able to get guaranteed next day delivery. So they're going to be waiting 4 to 7 days for their delivery. And they also will be liable for duties if the order is above the £135 or €150 threshold. So again, this conversation about customer experience comes back, because you will miss out on sales if you're competing with another seller that's got their stock in a European warehouse. So if you want to sell successfully in Europe, best to register across the 6 different European countries and deliver stock or inventory directly to a EU-based warehouse.
Great. When I join a pan-EU fulfillment program, do I need to register for VAT in all European countries?
Okay, so in all of the pan-EU European countries, yes. So that would be 6 countries: Germany, France, Poland, Italy, Spain, Czech Republic. The reason for that is because, remember, we spoke about the legal requirement to register for VATs when you're going to be storing goods in a specific country. When you take part in pan-EU, there is the chance that Amazon will store your product in any one of those 6 countries, and therefore you need to be registered.
How can I check if the company my manufacturer is using for transporting the goods is locally registered with Amazon and is able to give the products to the warehouse?
Simple answer is if you had access to Amazon's back end for, I can't remember what they call it. It's something central, or like logistics central or something, or carrier central it's called, where all the registered carriers, will go in and check their delivery slots. Obviously, the market won't have access to that. So the only way you could really check is by making sure that your manufacturer has asked the transporter whether they have whether they're a registered carrier with Amazon. And I think this is really vital. We've seen this go horribly wrong with clients who land up being our clients because they've used a forwarder that isn't registered, and then we have to get involved and find our partners, and it can get really costly very quickly because the goods have to be stored somewhere. The truck drivers are waiting. So really, it is very important that you check, that you get your manufacturer to check with the logistics provider. And also, first choice is if you could communicate directly with the logistics provider and check it for yourself.
Right. Do you know how to verify some of the certificates manufacturer issues? For example, about FDA registrations. Sometimes documents don't look original.
So if we're talking about the FDA specifically, if you're a foreign importer and you want to import FDA related products, so that would be anything food and health supplements also fall in that category. The best thing for you to do is to speak to what is known as an FSVP agent. So that stands for Foreign Supplier Verification Program. You will need one in order to successfully import into the US, but they will be able to check those types of documents. When it comes to anything else, I think that's really a gap that we're fulfilling in the market, where when we request certain types of documents, compliance-related documents for your products, our team will check them to see if they are legit and to see if they match what is required by customs. I don't know of anybody else out there that is actually doing that.
Talking about the newest Amazon European countries, Sweden, Netherlands, Poland, so you work with a lot of clients. What do you see? Any thoughts? Are they successful? Is it worth?
So the truth is, so Poland, there is fulfillment centers in Poland. As far as I understand it, there are no fulfillment centers yet built in Sweden and the Netherlands. I did hear recently that Amazon were looking for fulfillment centers to be built in the Netherlands. So really, when you switch on Sweden and Netherlands, they're going to be fulfilling orders from countries that are closest by, mostly probably Germany. The Polish market, I have no idea what that's like. I know that the fulfillment centers in Poland and Czech Republic were built specifically around serving the German marketplace. It's cheaper to get bigger land in those 2 countries, and Germany obviously being the largest marketplace in Europe, there's not enough space in their German warehouses. That was why they went to Poland and Czech Republic to do that. So you'll see that Amazon will offer you cheaper fulfillment fees if you opt in for being able to store your product in Czech Republic and Poland to serve the German marketplace. But again, the complexity there is that you will need to have get VAT registrations in Czech Republic and Poland, not because you're going to be getting sales from those countries necessarily, but because they're going to be storing goods there to fulfill orders in Germany.
And how to prepare for the new countries Amazon is launching next year? Some people are already talking that there will be Amazon in South Africa. I think there were like 4 more countries, in Nigeria, and a few more I already forgot.
I don't have advice here. I would say keep looking at the news and wait for Amazon to actually publish their official information. You know, a lot of what's been said in the press has been leaked information. It hasn't been official statements by Amazon yet. So I would wait. My suggestion is wait until Amazon publish, you know, Amazon specific or legit publications about their new marketplaces before you start really making any moves.
All right. I don't know if you can answer this regarding product compliance. What are the most difficult product categories that need most documents? Maybe this is like no-go areas for Amazon sellers.
I can definitely answer this because I deal with this on the client side a lot. If you ask me the specifics around product compliance, that's not my forte, but this I can. So food and beverages are by far, so food and then medical devices. So I can give an example, or medical devices or products. We had a client that wanted to ship pet eye drops. That's by far the most complex product I've seen from a product compliance point of view. It's taken months to get that right. Food, obviously, because it poses a danger to people. So there's a lot of complexity and compliance around food. I'd say health supplements come after that. And then when it comes to general consumer goods, certain types of electronics can get quite complex, especially in Europe with the CE markings that are necessary and the new WEEE directive, or basically what it means is for recycling. So that can get a little bit complicated. And then so on and so forth when it comes to the rest of the consumer products. But I'd say food, medical products, cosmetics, electronics are up there with, you know, the food and medical are definitely in their own category. And then after that, it would be electronics and cosmetics.
All right. Shahid wants to know, can you highlight VAT registration timelines for all 6 marketplaces in Europe?
So tax offices are similar to customs offices. There's inconsistencies. We see that German registrations have taken extended periods of time just because of the volume of people trying to get registered there. The UK, I'd say we can get a successful registration within 4 weeks. When it comes to Italy, Spain, and France, those 3 countries can be quite sticky on how, you know, the different types of documentation that's required to get the registration. So what causes delays, for example, in Spain, is that your company documentation needs to be wet stamped and translated into Spanish. So it's not necessarily the tax office that causes the delay because of the processing, but it's because it takes so long for the clients to get the documentation preparation ready to get the registration. I can't give you specific timelines for each EU marketplace, but I think what's really important is that you have a partner that understands exactly what's needed. So I'm dealing with a German registration right now, and when you send the power of attorney to the German tax office, it needs to be wet signed and it has to be couriered. So one of the things that we do is we actually do the courier on behalf of our clients to make that process a little bit easier. But if the client had to take charge of that, you know, that could extend the registration period a couple of weeks if they're not 100% sure exactly how to get it done.
What happens is if Amazon sellers are not filing VAT tax reports on time, can Amazon block sellers' account?
So Amazon won't have control over the filing of tax reports. Amazon will check the actual registration because that's what's most applicable to them, because because of the legal trigger for storage of inventory in the countries and a VAT registration. I think what's more relevant here is what is the tax office going to do to you if you're not filing your tax reports on time, and that's going to be penalties and interest. So Amazon don't have much say in the ongoing filings, especially because when the VAT laws changed, Amazon collects and remits the sales VAT directly to the tax office now, both in the UK and the EU. So they're not interested in how often or what you're doing with your filings. They've done their bit for the government once the products have been sold. It's you that's going to have the issue with the government if your filings are not done on time.
All right, great. So can we get an overview one more time how Z can help Amazon sellers and e-commerce sellers? You're working not only with Amazon sellers, right?
Correct. Not only with Amazon sellers, we work with Shopify and big D2C brands. But how do we help Amazon sellers? We are a one-stop shop solution to get your Amazon or e-commerce business trading in an international market. So any market where you do not have a physical presence or legal entity. We do that by offering two core services. We have global trade compliance, which means we will get your entity VAT, GST, or JCT registered. So whatever tax system is necessary in the country for trading. We will get your products both legal for sale and import in that country so that your products can actually be imported and sold. We will then do all of your import compliance work. So we prepare all of your customs documentation, make sure the goods clear, and most importantly, make sure you are able to reclaim your import VAT. And then as a final, we will facilitate the end-to-end logistics as well. So we'll get your goods picked up from your warehouse or your manufacturer's warehouse and get it delivered directly to an Amazon fulfillment center or 3PL in the destination country.
Perfect. And you mentioned your contact email earlier, right? So what kind of emails people can write to you? Any general ones? Or?
Say hi if you want. I'm happy always just to have a conversation. If you want to know a little bit more about South Africa and what to do here, I can also tell you a little bit about that. But if it comes to your business, let us help you, advise you, and get you set up to trade if you really are serious about trading in international countries. I think the conversation I have with sellers all the time, you really have two ways to grow your e-commerce brand. You can introduce existing products into your existing market, or you can take your existing profitable products and introduce them into new marketplaces. And really, our services are that second lever of growth. I think I made a mistake. I meant you can introduce new products into your existing market, not existing products. So product development comes with negotiation with manufacturers, design, prototypes. It can be very administrative and very difficult. When it comes to consumer-based products, the stuff that really sells on Amazon, the toys, the baby products, the cosmetics, the electronics, those are products that are popular all around the globe. So really what we see is that if you're successful with your product, your consumer products in your home market, there's no reason why you shouldn't be successful in the next.
All right. So Shahid is happy with the answers you gave him. And those who would like to get in touch with Z, either you write to Rael directly or check the link below in the description, or just go to z.co. And all the links below. Thank you very much, Rael, and good luck in your business. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Augustus. Cheers.
Bye. And now I would like to invite you to watch the full video where 3 hours video with Z, different specialists from their company, where we talk about product, tax compliance, and few more things important for global expansion.